seriously think that he might still be alive?
I'm gonna tell you this, Pac, you never.
That's Pac, man. He was the outlaw. And Reg be holler back, trying to be friendly and get orders.
For almost 3 decades, Tupac Shakur's case has never really left hip-hop culture. Every few years, another interview resurfaces, another court update drops, another old clip gets passed around, and the internet starts asking the same 2 questions again. What really happened that night in Las Vegas? And why do some people still believe the full story was never told? Now, with new legal moves, old witness statements, and resurfaced interviews being discussed all over social media, the conversation has split into 2 completely different lanes. One side is focused on the mystery, the strange comments, the Cuba rumors, the unusual details that made fans wonder whether something was hidden from the public. The other side is focused on accountability, who was around Tupac, who had problems with him, who benefited from the chaos, and why it took so long for anyone to face charges. But before getting into the...
Yes, and that was part of his thug life agenda that he came up with his imprisoned stepfather, Mutulu Shakur. And so Tupac was just using that in order to get the leaders to call peace truces, first in Los Angeles, then throughout California, and then throughout the country. And that was why he was pretending to be this type. And really, he was just an intellectual product.
That explanation changes the way a lot of people look at Tupac. Because if his image was partly strategy, then the public version of Tupac and the private version of Tupac may not have been the same person. That is exactly why the theories never died. After the Las Vegas incident, fans kept pointing to strange interviews, odd comments, and people close to him saying things that sounded almost too mysterious. Some of it may be exaggeration. Some of it may be people chasing attention. But in hip-hop, one unclear sentence can live forever. One of the clips that kept the internet talking came from a moment involving Treach, who was known to have a real relationship with Tupac. The story that spread online claimed a camera was still rolling after an interview, and in that loose, unguarded moment, Tupac's name came up in a way that made fans stop and replay it over and over. Whether people believe the claim or not, this is the kind of footage that kept the "pocket still alive" conversation alive for years.
So if you ain't ready for it, get on the sidewalk. One last question. Nobody knows.
And not long after clips like that started circulating, another piece of footage began making the rounds, one that fans claim showed a Tupac lookalike, or possibly Tupac himself. In a public place out, some fans focused on the alive theories, others looked in a completely different direction. They started asking why Tupac was surrounded by so much tension, why his business situation was so complicated, and why certain people around him were viewed with suspicion by his own family. Tupac's biological father has spoken emotionally about the choices Tupac made and the people he trusted during that period. His comments are important because they show how painful this story is beyond the headlines. This was not just a rap beef. This was a young artist, pulled between fame, loyalty, money, street politics, and people who may not have had his best interests at heart.
All you think what happened, Suge understand, could nobody get to him. Suge, you know what you doing, don't do.
That is where the security question becomes impossible to ignore. Suge Knight had a long background around protection, security, and moving high-profile artists. Death Row was not a small operation. Tupac was not some unknown rapper walking around unnoticed. He was one of the biggest and most controversial figures in music. So when people look back at that night, they ask a simple question. How does someone as visible as Tupac end up so exposed in Las Vegas, right after a public altercation inside the MGM Grand? Critics have argued that stronger security, different movement, or even one different decision could have changed everything. Nobody can rewrite what happened. But that question still sits at the center of the case.
I mean, when I left that hospital, me and Pac was laughing and joking. So I don't see how somebody can turn from doing well to doing bad.
So you seriously think that he might still be alive?
I'm gonna tell you this, Pac, you dead.
Then Suge himself added another layer to the mystery. In interviews, he described leaving the hospital with the impression that Tupac was still fighting, still conscious, still showing signs of life. To some fans, that sounded like confusion. To others, it sounded like a door being left open.
He
charged in one of the most notorious cold case in modern American history, and this morning, the man known as Keffe D is breaking his silence from behind bars. For nearly 30 years ago, became one of the nation's most notorious unsolved.
Hey, Keith, Metro Police, come over here.
Then in 2023, a breakthrough when prosecutors charged this man with ordering the hit, the only person arrested for Shakur's, who now tells ABC News authorities have the wrong man.
But while the internet kept chasing mystery, law enforcement eventually moved toward a real criminal case. For years, Dwayne Keffe D. Davis had spoken publicly about the night Tupac was attacked. Those interviews, along with his own past statements, became a major part of why the case came back into the spotlight. After decades with no arrest, authorities finally charged him, and once that happened, the entire hip-hop world understood that the Tupac case was no longer just a theory, it was back in court.
I do believe so. I have proved things that I can say that will back up my claim, but this is not for the world to know about. You know what I mean? It's between me and him, and only he knows. So every time we say it didn't happen, or that's the only thing that makes this become an issue to everybody. I was acting, who gets shot 5 times in acts? Oh, I didn't get 5 times in their business. I only got shot once because they found the bug. The police found a banana.
From there, the story moved into what may be the most serious chapter yet. Tupac's family has now pushed for answers through civil court, arguing that the public still does not know the full scope of what happened. The lawsuit does not just focus on one person. It opens the door to the possibility that other people, some named and some still unknown, may have played a role or may know more than they have ever said publicly. This is where the internet conversation gets messy fast. Fans started connecting old interviews, old rivalries, record label pressure, East Coast versus West Coast tension, and names that have floated around this case for years. Suge Knight's role has been questioned. Snoop Dogg's relationship with Tupac in those final days has been debated. And Sean Diddy Combs has been pulled into the conversation through allegations, documentaries, and long-running speculation, even though he has repeatedly denied involvement and has never been criminally charged in Tupac's case. One reason the Diddy angle keeps coming back is because the Bad Boy and Death Row rivalry was one of the most dangerous cultural moments in rap history. Tupac believed enemies were moving against him. Diddy was seen as the face of the other side. Biggie was caught in the middle of a feud that became bigger than music. And once Tupac was gone, every personal connection started getting re-examined. Some fans even point to Sarah Chapman, who has been linked in online discussions because of her past connection to Tupac and later connection to Diddy's family life. That does not prove anything criminal. But in a story built on jealousy, power, image, and loyalty, people online treat every relationship like a possible clue. The safest way to say it is this: the official court process is focused on evidence, but the public conversation is much wider, and it keeps pulling in old footage that makes the story feel unfinished.
Example of everything that Diddy wanted to be, and he was that naturally. He was charismatic, he was sought after, desired, he was very well liked and a naturally likable person. He was charming, he actually had intrinsic talent, he was a star. He was what Diddy tried to force his way into becoming. Diddy, through force, through manipulation, through fear-mongering, tried to become loved and adored and liked. But all he could manage is like a twisted clone of that he was able to garner through fear. But back to my original point, he thought he triumphed over Tupac when actually what he did was make Tupac immortal. And by Diddy continuing to live and earn more wealth and, in his mind, earn more adoration, he thought he triumphed. He thought he won.
That old Tupac clip hit differently once people started watching it through today's lens. Suddenly, fans were not just hearing anger. They were hearing fear, betrayal, and a young artist trying to explain why he believed people around the industry were moving strangely.
4 of those occasions, of San Diego, Anaheim, Irvine, and Vegas, which ones do you actually talk to Puffy at?
Every one.
Every one of them. Which of those 4 is it when you talk to him about Tupac?
It was really about both of them. Either one of them. It was
Tupac and Suge.
Years later, as Diddy's name came up again in documentaries, lawsuits, and online breakdowns, people started connecting those old suspicions to newer claims. Some commentators have pointed to past statements from investigators and witnesses who alleged that money and rivalry may have played a role behind the scenes, but that has to be handled carefully. Allegations are not convictions, and speculation is not proof. What is confirmed is that Keffe D became central to the criminal case after years of public comments about the night of the attack. And in one recorded interview, commentators have questioned whether Tupac's business situation at death row created pressure behind the scenes. Others believe the more direct explanation is still the MGM fight and the retaliation that followed. Then there is the Snoop Dogg. That reaction sums up why Snoop's name keeps coming back into the conversation. Not because there is confirmed proof that he set anything up, but because his relationship with Tupac had clearly changed near the end. Snoop has explained that he and Tupac were not seeing things the same way after comments he made about Biggie and Puffy. In the middle of a coast-to-coast feud, even a respectful answer in an interview could be seen as betrayal. And, according to Snoop, that tension was real enough that he felt unsafe around his own label mates during that period. So when Snoop says things were different between them right before Tupac's final days, fans hear that as tragedy. One week they could look like brothers. A few days later, the tension was so serious that Snoop says he was thinking about his own safety. That does not mean Snoop caused what happened. It means the environment around Tupac was unstable. Friendships were strained. Public comments were being taken personally. Street politics were mixing with music politics. And once everyone started choosing sides, Tupac was moving through Las Vegas with more enemies, more pressure, and less protection than someone at his level should have ever had.
And their entourage went to the Mike Tyson, the MGM Grand. Keffe D and his nephew, Orlando Lane Anderson, and two of their friends were also there. Keffe D told LAPD Detective Greg Kading more than a decade ago, in a proffer that couldn't be used against him, the thing was retaliation, after Tupac jumped Orlando and beat him up at the casino. Surveillance cameras recorded the fight. Tupac was angry that Lane had stolen his necklace years prior in Compton. Tupac, Suge Knight, and the entourage.
So, after looking at the theories, the interviews, and the names that still get debated, the next step is to go back to the night itself. Because no matter how many rumors surround this case, the timeline begins in Las Vegas on 7th of September 1996. Tupac was there with Suge Knight for the Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand. The night was supposed to be about boxing, celebrity, and celebration, but after the fight, everything shifted. Inside the casino, Tupac and members of the Death Row Circle crossed paths with Orlando Anderson, a man connected to a rival street group and someone who already had history with people around Death Row. What happened in that lobby became one of the most important moments in hip-hop history, because prosecutors and investigators have long pointed to that confrontation as the spark that led to the attack later that night.
Streets knew about Tupac's concert at the Club 662. Members, including Orlando and Keffe D, jumped in their white Cadillac and started cruising the strip looking for the offender. Before long, they finally spotted Tupac's caravan. At the intersection of East Flamingo Boulevard and Koval Lane, the white Cadillac pulled alongside the black BMW with Suge on the driver and Tupac on the passenger seats. The back window of the Cadillac rolled twice in the chest.
After that confrontation, the night kept moving instead of slowing down. Tupac and Suge left the MGM, reportedly went to change, and then headed toward Club 662, a venue connected to Sue. On paper, it may have looked like the party was continuing, but in reality, a regret.
I hate that happened, dog. You know, I really do, man. Yeah, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you actually?
Once you got the region, I got the ducking.
So, someone from your car.
That's what I
Sorry.
That claim also connects to one of the biggest debates about Tupac's image. Some writers and commentators have argued that Tupac was not naturally built for the street role the public attached to him. Others say that is too simple, because Tupac was a complex person, an artist, actor, activist, and young man under extreme pressure. What makes the story so tragic is that Tupac's image became bigger than his safety. The same persona that made him powerful also pulled him deeper into conflicts that were no longer just music. And by the time Las Vegas happened, the line between performance, loyalty, pride, and real danger had completely disappeared.
These guys sold him this lifestyle idea, but he wasn't it. He couldn't fight. He had no athleticism. He didn't know how to shoot. He wasn't that guy, but he started to believe it.
He method acted.